In this particular case, the Republicans were right.
So you think the Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party?
No, I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high taxes to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right? But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay?
This wasn't just another polite TV exchange. It was a head-on collision between two completely different realities. For years, The View has operated like a sanctuary of pre-approved opinions, a place where disagreement is softened, filtered, and applauded only when it stays within the lines. Then Stephen A. Smith walked in, and the temperature instantly changed. He didn't arrive to blend in or play along. He came from a world where arguments are judged by impact, not approval. His presence alone disrupted the ecosystem. This wasn't a guest appearance, it was a controlled environment suddenly exposed to chaos. The hosts made one massive mistake. They assumed Stephen A. Smith would follow a script they'd already written in their heads. They expected alignment. They expected affirmation. What they got was resistance. The moment his answers didn't fit their expectations, you could see the mood shift in real time. Their usual conversational traps didn't work. Their safety nets collapsed. They weren't facing a participant, they were facing someone who doesn't operate for applause, but for outcomes. And they were not ready.
Live and let live, okay? But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that. These
That's less than 1% of the population.
I understand that,
but you know what?
But I think that's where the mistake is made.
Yeah,
you're saying it's ridiculous. I don't disagree with you. Yeah. But most of the voters out there don't think like that.
But that means they don't have the information.
Okay, but 90% of the voters don't have.
Watch closely after Smith finishes speaking. That silence isn't awkward, it's revealing. The panel wasn't processing disagreement. They were processing shock. They're used to guests who tread lightly, who treat the table like a privilege. Smith didn't ask for acceptance. He didn't seek validation. When he spoke bluntly about the state of the country, the rhythm of the show collapsed. Attempts to redirect failed. The control they rely on was gone, and everyone could feel it. This exchange went far beyond daytime television. It exposed something deeper, the illusion that there's only one acceptable way to interpret reality. Smith challenged the idea that truth is decided by consensus or studio approval. He reminded everyone that real life exists outside curated conversations and time limits. The discomfort came from realizing that the audience no longer needs gatekeepers to validate what they already experience every day.
Busting your tail to make ends meet and to pay your bills, and you're going to work every day, and you got a family to take care of, and you're in New York City, you're getting stuck 2 hours of your day, you're stuck in traffic. You understand? You got a whole bunch of stuff to go through. You don't have time to know what you and I know.
Maybe you need to listen to the news when you're in traffic.
Well, again,
maybe
I agree
not
with
be
that. Or you listen to stuff that's going to take you away from the things that brings down your spirit. And that's unfortunately.
Calling Stephen A. Smith just loud misses the point entirely. His volume is intentional, but his strength is structure. He controls space with energy and holds it with logic. He didn't retreat when things got tense, and he didn't soften his stance to maintain comfort. By refusing to play defense, he forced the hosts into unfamiliar territory, actual engagement. Their usual tactics fell flat because he never let them define the battlefield.
Because you were inserted, even though you were the vice president and it was the Biden-Harris administration, you had folks who are independent. I'm not talking about those on the right, I'm not talking about those on the left, just independents, who said, wait a minute, she didn't experience a primary either. And the last time we saw her in a primary was 4 years ago, and she didn't even make it to Iowa. They used that as an excuse to point to her level of inexperience. Then you got the war in Russia and Ukraine, you got the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Hamas and Hezbollah and all of that stuff, and you had Trump using codes. Look, do you want her? Where is she? Where's the interviews? Where's she showing herself? Where's the tough questions? Where's the interrogation? And he leaned.
At a certain point, Smith stopped speaking to the panel and started speaking past them. The audience felt it. Viewers at home felt it even more. This was no longer television. It was a direct address to people tired of being talked down to. He gave voice to frustrations that rarely make it past studio filters. In a space built on performance, his blunt honesty cut through like static braking signal.
He originally said he was just going to do it for 4 years.
Right. Yeah. That's what I brought up.
Right. And did you think that once you know who stepped in, he said, well, there's nobody, we don't have anybody.
Well, the point is that
right.
It's not about who you're going up against when you know you're not what you used to be. And see, this is where covering sports puts me at a distinct advantage. I cover people every day where it's time for you to go, but you're holding on and you don't want to leave. People who cover the world of sports are accustomed to seeing that all the time. You are the left, you leaned, and you were a prisoner to the extreme left in a lot of people's eyes. Well, guess what? Most of America doesn't operate on the fringes. Whether you're left or you're right, you're relatively centered.
The most powerful word in this entire exchange wasn't shouted, it was simple: no. Not a softened no. Not a negotiated no. A firm rejection of the premise itself. Smith understood something critical. Once you accept a loaded framing, you've already lost. So he didn't accept it. He stood his ground and forced the conversation onto his terms. That wasn't defiance, it was control.
Problem is, those on the fringes continuously push for you to get everything you want.
Yeah.
They're not about getting things done. They're about getting their way. And if they're not going to get their way, they're about complaining and griping about it, because they understand that when you are operating based off of grievance, that's usually what provokes you to get to the polls. And that is why they don't mind feeling aggrieved and displaying and disseminating that kind of message, because they know people are going to gravitate to that. And as a result, that might get them to the polls, you thinking you're going to get what you...
As the segment continued, the panel scrambled to regain footing. They tried reframing. They tried labeling. They tried escalation. None of it worked. Why? Because Smith wasn't presenting something extreme. He was saying what many already believe. The tension wasn't fueled by anger. It came from a system realizing it had lost leverage. By the end, the exhaustion on set told the real story.
Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party.
No, I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay? But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that.
This moment will age differently than most viral clips. It signaled a shift. When someone deeply embedded in mainstream media refuses to repeat the approved narrative, it exposes how fragile that narrative has become. The authority of the gatekeepers weakened in real time. The audience isn't rejecting information. They're rejecting insulation from reality. And this exchange made that unmistakably clear. Stephen A. Smith didn't just hold his own, he redefined the space. He left the panel looking like representatives of an era that's losing relevance fast. What emerged wasn't chaos, but independence. This wasn't about winning an argument. It was about reclaiming the right to speak freely without permission. Politeness may comfort, but truth disrupts. And disruption, as this moment proved, is exactly what people are responding to now.
Says that he wasn't confident that the country was ready to elect the first female president because he knows, quote, how men talk behind closed doors about us. So we're very privileged to have a great guy here today.
Yeah.
Tell her, what do men say about us behind closed doors?
Well, first of all,
say it to our faces.
Yeah, do tell.
I don't hide, so no worries there. Here's the deal. I respectfully disagree with Howard Stern, only from the standpoint that I wish he had been more specific. Why don't you say white men? Because let me tell you something about black men. We love our mamas.
I know that.
We love...